Hey everybody, this morning I'm on the south side, not of Indianapolis actually, but I'm south of Indianapolis, in Greenwood. Craig parked right over here to the side of me, and this is a place that I like quite a bit. And I would live in this particular area, and I would live in all kinds of areas in Greenwood. But I also would live in Indianapolis, I would live in Brownsburg, I would live in Franklin, Indiana, I would live in Carmel, Indiana, I'd live in Fishers, Indiana. There's so many places that I would live. And so the question that comes up from time to time, it's not all the time, but a lot of people that aren't really familiar with the Indy Metro is just, they're trying to get some kind of information, some perspective, and they ask me or somebody on our team, where do you want to live? And if you want to live there, why don't you live there? Like Carmel is a good example, or Fishers, great example. Lived in Fishers for a really long time. Never actually physically lived in Carmel. I've just lived so super close to it. But if I'm such a fan of it, or if I'm such a fan of Greenwood, why do I not live there? Well, lots of reasons for that, but where would I want to live? And am I living in the place that I want to live? Actually, yeah, right now, the place that we live in Greenfield, Indiana, is not a place I ever pictured us living, but I now want to live there. And so the answer to that question is, it's not that complicated, really, but it can be just maybe sometimes a little complicated getting to that. So where I would want to live around the Indianapolis Metro is what we're talking about in this video, and how I would get to the answer to that. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with Living in Indianapolis channel and team. Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, welcome to you too. There are lots and lots of videos out there for you to peruse through and get information about places like I'm in right now, Greenwood, or of course anywhere around the whole Indy Metro. Lots and lots out there for you. But again, this question comes up, where would I want to live? So there are lots of places that I have actually lived around Indianapolis, and there are lots of places that I would want to live around Indianapolis for a lot of different reasons. Now, I said at the beginning of the video that we live in Greenfield, Indiana, which is true. Small city to the east of Indianapolis, roughly 25,000 people or so. In Hancock County, which is not a very populated county at all. Less than 100,000 people there, which is still completely amazing that it's that way. It won't be that way in the next 20 years. It's going to get not more crowded, but more populated. There's a lot of space there, so it's going to be pretty hard for it to be completely crowded. So right now I want to live there, and it's definitely not a place that I would ever have dreamt of living in. And it's interesting because there are places that around Indianapolis, even people who don't live here, they know about. And they know about these places because they're on a lot of different lists. So best places to live in the country, best small cities in the country to live in, healthiest cities or counties in the country. I mean, you name it, places like Carmel, Fishers, Westfield, they've been on those lists time and time again. So, you know, it gets to the point where people that live, let's say, in Alaska or Washington State or Texas or something like that, or California, and they just know that these places exist, and they sound like really great places to live. And by most accounts, they're extremely solid places to live. Are they the best places to live? I mean, there's some subjectivity to that, and how they measure these things. They try to make those measures as objective as possible, but it's hard to take those and then say it's perfect for everybody, and it's going to be a top 10 place for you to live in the country. I think it's common sense that we know lists don't work like that. But that could influence somebody in wanting to live there, which is really the reason why I think a lot of times people ask me things like that. So Carmel, Indiana, again, as an example. Well, if don't you want to live in Carmel? It's on all these lists. It's a fantastic place to live. Everybody says, of course, I would live in Carmel, but right now I don't want to live in Carmel. And for the simple fact that Greenfield is just a better fit location-wise for us. If we lived in Carmel, for me, would be no big deal. I mean, I am all over Indianapolis, not every single day of the week, but any given week, there are multiple places that I'm probably going to be. Either meeting a client or meeting somebody that could potentially be a client and they want to have a meeting, or shooting a video like this. I mean, this morning I was with a client in Greenwood, and so I thought, well, I'm gonna shoot a video while I'm in Greenwood, and here I am. And it's another one of the greens. I'm in Greenwood, we live in Greenfield, there's a Greensburg, Indiana, there's a Greencastle, Indiana, and it's pretty funny because this came up the other day, and somebody said, well, it is green, and it's true. It is usually very, very green around here. It's just fall right now, very late fall, so things are starting to look a little more brown, yellow, red. It's colorful now, not necessarily just brown or just green. So Greenfield works for us the best location-wise for my wife and for the rest of our family. So if we lived in Carmel, her commute to work every single day would probably be 45 minutes, and that would be optimistic. It could be a little bit worse than that with traffic, and some of you might think that's not bad because you're used to driving an hour and a half, and I've talked to a lot of people that have that kind of situation. No, but that's not one that we want to deal with, and we don't have to deal with that. We can live in a place that puts my wife 9 minutes, just 9 minutes from where she works. And it's consistent. It never changes because the route or the multiple routes to her job, it's just essentially almost traffic free. There are cars, but you're never going to run into some kind of weird jam. So the location is absolutely what's driven it for us. We lived in Fishers for 11 years and still love Fishers. Of course we'd want to live in Fishers, but the location no longer works. So where do you want to live? You may want to live in Carmel, but there might be some factors that are going to hold you back. You might want to live in Fishers, but there'll be factors that'll hold you back. You may not want to live in some place, at least initially, but you discover that most of the variables that determine where you're going to live, or at least make it easy to live there, are going to push that place up the list. And for us, that was Greenfield. Like I said, that was never on our radar as a place to live. But given where my wife works, a few other variables in there, but mostly because of that, and we had 3 young kids, and it was just so much better when we were both closer to home or available or had that option. If my wife had to leave it right when everybody's getting up in the morning and then didn't get home until kind of later in the evening, like 6:30, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. When you have 3 young kids, your night is mostly shot at that point because you're gonna eat, you're gonna get everybody cleaned up, and then you're probably getting ready for bed. That's not much happening. So we want more time at home. So Greenfield came up as an option. I thought, okay, well, let's give it a shot. We actually like it a whole lot more than we ever thought we would, which is pretty interesting. So here's the deal. You have places that you want to live, and that is perfectly fine. And this is actually how we'll go through our process of helping someone find the right location, because in my mind, our team's mind, is that the location is really number one. What is the best location for you? And that can mean a lot of different things as to what best is. So we have to tease that out. Oftentimes though, if you work in a particular location, then your living location likely wants to be relatively close to that, or at least a reasonable distance from that. So that's an example. So where do you want to live? What's going to be the best location for you? And then also, what kind of price range are you looking at? And what type of schools do you want, if that's a factor at all? But that price range is a very big deal. Because if you're looking, let's say, under $300,000, a place like Carmel is probably 100% off the table, unless you're looking for maybe a small condo or apartment-like condo, something like that. And you'll have a few options, but actually there won't even be that many of those. But if you're looking for a single family home, we have to be honest, that price range is going to have a certain set of locations that are available for you. And that is just the unfortunate reality. That's the reality anywhere you live in the country, not just in Carmel. It's also Indianapolis or Greenwood, where I am today. So there are places where you can find more options within that price range. But let's say your budget is under $1 million. Okay, well, some of the country you're gonna be pretty limited, but around Indianapolis, you're pretty much unlimited. You can live anywhere. You can live in Zionsville, Carmel, the two most expensive places. And there's even some places in Indy, like Meridian Hills or Meridian Kessler, that are up there, very close to the price point, the average price point that a place like Carmel and Zionsville would be. Those places are open. You can go anywhere. So you're not going to want to go anywhere though. Your location is going to be a preference. That's going to be number one. And where you want to live initially may not match where you truly need to live based on your day-to-day. That was the most influential part in our decision. Greenfield wasn't where we wanted to live initially. Now I would say, oh, it's up the list because we like it more than we really thought we did. But initially where you want to live may not match those day-to-day. We've got to tease those things out. So I would say right now, if you're open, if you're moving to someplace in the Indianapolis metro and you're open geographically to a lot of places, we need to narrow that down. Because living in a place like Greenwood and a place like Carmel, there's a big difference between those two just in distance. So if you live in Greenwood and think, yeah, I'm gonna go to the Arts and Design District or Midtown in Carmel all the time, not unless you're used to a lot of driving. Because if I'm in Greenwood and somebody says, oh, can you meet me real quick for this thing? Where are you? I'm at US 31 and 146th Street, which is on the north side of Carmel. I would think, oh, are you kidding? That is a long way from here. That is easily a 45, 50-minute drive from here. And I don't really love driving those distances. Some people might. I am not included in that group. I'd rather it be a lot closer and my drive be a whole lot shorter. Some people have more of a tolerance for that. So that's, again, where would you want to live? We need to figure out if that location really, truly works for you. So for me personally, when people ask me where would I want to live, I say, ultimately a lot of places, and they're just places I'm not gonna have an opportunity ever to live. First in the world, there would be places in the world I would like to try living for a while and could potentially like it better than here. I don't really know. Maybe, I think it'd be hard to beat in a lot of ways, and in other ways, I think, yeah, it'd probably be pretty easy to beat. But even around Indianapolis, I would love to live in a lot of locations in Indy. I've lived in a lot of locations in Indy. There are places I'd like to live again in Indianapolis, and then plenty around here. But you have to dial in truly with what you want and match it up to what is realistically best. And that is really the essence of what we do. We try to consult with you to figure out that match. If you have questions about that at all, then don't hesitate to reach out any way you know how. And we'll catch you in the next one.